Hello. So we've taken our time to discuss what it takes to set up an aquaponic system. So the next thing we'll be talking about is setting up your grow bed. Remember, depending on the kind of aquaponic system you are doing, that would determine whether the type of grow bed you would be needing. In our discussion so far, we've looked at the four major types of aquaponic system. We said there is the floating or the raft system. In that case, you just have your plant bed on top of the aquaculture itself, which means you really do not need a bed per se. If you decide to do the NFT type of aquaponics, you also will not need a bed. However, if you decide to do the flood and drain method, then you are going to need a bed. And we said the advantage of the flood and drain is it gives you the opportunity to grow more options and varieties of crops, and which is, I think, depending on the location you go to in the world, flood and drain and the floating or raft system tends to rival each other as to which is most popular. And we said when you are taking your flood and drain, your grow bed is very, very, very important. It is really, really essential because you need to be sure that when it is able to provide support for the plant, there is enough aeration for your plant, and it is able to retain water for a bit so that the plant has a place to absorb. So these are the things you need to know. And then again, we said if you're also considering your grow bed, it is important, very, very important, that you remember that the materials you are going to be using for your grow bed should be materials that are inert, meaning they do not add anything to the nutrient. They do not interfere in any way with the nutrients you are trying to supply from your aquaculture. So they must be inert. They must be pH neutral. They are not contributing anything on their own. They also have no nutrient. They are nutrientless, without nutrient. I think that's correct, but without nutrient. You get what I mean? I don't know if the word nutrientless is correct, but without nutrient. So we'll be looking at some of the materials that you can use for grow beds. Some of the materials you can use for grow bed. 1, 2. We would also look at how to build a perfect grow bed. So we are going to build a grow bed together. Now, another thing again you should also note that is you want your grow bed, if I am using, I'm going to explain that, but how to arrange your grow bed. But first, let's look at some of the materials that you can use for grow beds. I will turn this to face the board. Okay, so this is facing the board. So we have, now in picking these materials, I want to look at some specific characteristics. I want to look at how expensive, what is the cost implication of this grow bed material you want to choose. What is the weight? Because if the materials you are all using are really heavy, then the support system for the grow bed would have to be really, really strong. Then what is the pH of that thing? Does it increase in pH? Does it reduce pH? Or is it totally pH neutral? Then what is its ability to retain water? Can it retain water or can't retain water at all or slightly? They also look at, does the material produce dust or debris? Is it a material that will bring dust or debris? Then we look at availability of that material. So we are going to be looking at all of the different types of materials you can use for grow bed, but under these different headings. So the first one we will start with is gravel. Of course, you know that gravel is really, really cheap. So I'll use a down arrow to show it is not expensive at all. It is very cheap. However, when you come to weight, gravel is expensive. Sorry, when you come to weight, gravel has a high weight. It is not expensive, sorry. Gravel is cheap, but weighs much. Then you come to the pH. When you bring in the gravel, it will slightly increase your pH. So we usually advise, before you use your gravel for grow beds, soak them inside detergent for like maybe 2-3 days. Soak them inside detergent, wash, so that by the time they come in, they do not change the pH. They do not make this pH become slightly alkaline. Then water, Your gravel cannot retain water. So let's put that as double arrow down. They do not retain water. Then debris, again, let me put that as an arrow up. So take note that these two arrow ups, you can actually control their effect. When you bring your gravel and you pour inside water, there are some little debris that comes up, right? However, you know that if you leave the gravel there and you keep changing the water, to get to a time where they do not give you debris at all. So assuming you are not doing all those clean, that's why I said slight dust or debris. How available is it? It is readily available. Okay, let's put that as yes. It is readily available. So I take that again. We looked at gravel from cost, it is cheap. Weight, it weighs very high. It will slightly increase your pH, so it is advisable you soak before usage. It cannot retain water at all. So if you are thinking of using gravel only as your grow bed, then you are going to run into issues because it means you have to continually pump water. Dust and debris, it produces dust and debris initially, but if you are able to wash before usage, you won't have that issue. Then we said it is readily very available. Then the next one we'll be looking at is sand. Sand. Again, sand is also cheap. However, it weighs even higher than gravel because the gravel gives space, but this is very, very high in weight. Then again, it slightly increases pH. So usually we advise if you can get the white or sea sand, the sand from the water, then soak again before usage. Soak again before usage. Water retention, yes, with your loamy soil, you want to go for something loamy, sandy-ish, but not clay. It can retain water slightly. Then again, debris is the same thing. When you first bring it the first time, then of course we know it is readily very available. Again, let me put an asterisk for the readily available, because if you want to use the sea sand, you may not just readily available, depending on where you live, that will determine its availability. I hope that makes sense. The next one we'll be looking at is your lava rock. Your lava rock. It is very expensive. Oh, sorry, let's use the black marker so you can see it. This is expensive. Weight. It's not really, so let me put up and down to just so it is neutral. So it doesn't weigh like way that much. Then, so your lava rock doesn't weigh that much. Your pH, this is best. It is pH neutral. Okay, so maybe I think I should use an arrow of like that to show it doesn't weigh much or less. It's just like a normal average weight, though that doesn't make sense. Then water retention, also the same thing. So it doesn't really hold water that long or too little. Just then debris, yes, debris. So if you can wash before use, it would help. So you notice the first three we've talked about, the debris is an issue. Availability, it is not so available. It is not so available, which is why it is quite expensive. Then you come to coir. Coir, if you're using things like your cocoa coir, cocoa fiber and all, they are relatively cheap, not so cheap. So let me put it as a neutral. It's not like over the head expensive or cheap, but just in between. Weight, I mean, if you've seen your cocoa fiber before, they have no weight at all. pH, it's neutral. It can retain water years. So for people that are wondering what is cocoa coir or your cocoa fiber, when you buy coconut, the coconut you buy in the market does not come that way from the farm. If this is the coconut you are buying in the market, it actually has a bigger husk than another surrounding like that. That's what's cleaning. So the fiber is all of this, or coir, or cocoa pits, whichever one they decide to call it. So that's what that is. Then, does it bring in initial dust and debris? Yes, it also does slightly to your system, slightly. Then, is it readily available? Yes, but I am going to put a little bit of an asterisk. It is readily available, but you need to know where to source them. So if you are living in Calabar in Nigeria, for example, or Ekpe region, you have enough of cocoa coil available to you. Rock wool. For us in Nigeria, if you're in Nigeria, rock wool is expensive for cost. If you are in the US, UK, rock wool is cheap for you. So in Nigeria, it is expensive. Weight, it practically has no weight, but when you put water, it weighs a bit more, but practically no weight. pH, nah, it's neutral, it doesn't give you any pH. Water retention, yes. Dust, no. Then availability, if you have the money, it is available. So if you don't have the money, then it goes to not available. So it's about whether or not you can afford it. Then hydroton again is another material that you can use. Again, it is again very expensive, weighs nothing, pH is neutral, retains water, no dust or debris. Unless you have the money, we'll count it as not readily available, not readily available. Then finally, you have things like your perlite, your vermiculite, and all of that. Again, if you are in Nigeria, it is expensive. If you are in the US, the UK, Canada, and all of that, it is relatively cheap. Weight, they weigh really nothing. pH is neutral. No, they don't retain water. No, they don't cause debris. Availability, not readily available because of the price. Not readily available. Okay, because it depends on where. Let me put this with an asterisk. Let's put this with an asterisk. The reason is because depends on the source of your perlite or vermiculite. That will determine whether or not you have debris inside. Other things that you can use are things like clay pebbles, things like potting soil, things like your peat moss. These are things you can get easily around. You have peat moss. You can even use your charcoal, but you have to be careful in using charcoal because remember, your charcoal on its own wants to hold nutrients in. So until it is concentrated, it is probably not going to allow the plant have access to the nutrients. So I hope that makes sense. So we are going to see how do we use some of these to build using the flood and drain method. So let's see if we can build. So this is my fish pond. This is my fish pond with water. And my fishes. So remember we said one of the first things you need to remember is your stand. And the kind of stand you use is totally dependent on what we are going to be using for your bed. So let's say this is my stand, and here I have another stand. So it's here I want to put my bed. So this is where I want to put my bed. By law, so that number one, you want your system to be balanced, not wobbling and all. You want to start with the healthiest material. So I'm going to do an example of building a bed in Nigeria for Nigerians. So first we want to take gravel because the gravels are readily available. So we put gravel. We have gravel. So here we have gravel, number one. So gravel gives us the support. So let's look for something that can give us, let's see if we can get a bit of, let's use a little bit of white sand. So this is my white sand. So white sand. So let's write that. Is that showing? Yes. So white sand. If you don't want to use white sand, which other option can I pick? If I don't want to use white sand, I can use peat moss. I can use potting soil. Whichever one I decide to use, I'm fine. Then on top of that, let's add something else. I'm going to look for another color. Let's add our cocoa fiber. Let's add our cocoa fiber. Of course, in all of some of these things will permeate because of we want to fill up the little spaces inside. So bring in your cocoa fiber. So here we have our cocoa fiber. I can still decide to add something extra if I like. I might decide to throw in a bit of charcoal, very little, because I don't want it to fight my plant, but if not, you can leave it out. So with this, what I have been able to build is an aquaponic bed, such that when the water comes, the water is going to come and drop on top like that. So that here I have my plants growing. I have my plants growing. We have our plants growing here. So as the plant continues to grow, the cocoa fiber and the soil act as a support system that also helps to retain nutrients for a bit. Then we have your gravel that helps to give the real support the plant needs, so the plant does not fall off and all. So this is an example of an aquaponic bed. But remember, we want to ensure you are measuring things like your pH, your EC, your TDS, and all of that, like we had discussed earlier. Then remember, we've talked about how to measure your ratio, because you want to be sure that the ratio of what you have here is equivalent to what you are feeding. You don't want this to be so small and this is so big, if not your plant to suffer from deficiency. On the other hand, you don't want this to be so big and this is so small, if not, the excess nutrients that are available in the water will start to take off the oxygen and at the end suffocate the animals, as the fishes, when then they would die. So that is that about this. Then question would be, how often do we irrigate? Depending on what you are using as your aquaponic bed, naturally we say irrigate at least one time or two times once every 1 hour or once every 2 hours, depending again on your aquaponic bed, because you need to be sure that when you irrigate, the whole of the water, when I say water now, the water flooded, we know we call it flood and drain. It means you are flooding, there is so much water. So you need to ensure that the whole water has drained out. So once every 1 or 2 hours, you flood and you let the water drain out. You flood again, allow the whole water to drain out, but not to dryness. So we will stop here. So I say this again. We said we have different types. You have coconut fiber, you have clay pebbles, charcoal, peat moss, sphagnum moss, potting soil, sawdust. You can even use your rice hull. But if you are using sawdust, be sure of the quality of the wood where the sawdust came from, so you don't infect your plants. Then you can also use your rice hull. If possible, carbonate the rice hull. It would also give a better result, and also increase the ability for the rice hull to hold or retain water. So that is that for this. The next class, we would be looking at filtration, because filtration is the all in all when it comes to aquaponics system.